noxious or invasive plants, you need to either be spraying those with a chemical that's made to be sprayed near water. That is a state regulation. You also need to make sure that if you want to mow, that you're doing that at a time where it is dry, so that you don't just dump your mower into the creek. It's not a good thing. You also don't want to rut up the bench area. This is your floodplain, so you want to keep that safe. And in a year like this, I say again, this is only a 2-year-old planting. And this has been a drought year, and it's pretty typical to see a lot of your natives just look like tiny little midget plants. And that's normal in a drought year. So really this planting probably won't hold true with that traditional 3-year planting rule. It's going to take probably 4 or 5, and especially if next year is a drought year, and who knows. So weather and patience are 2 things that are sort of out of our control when you're doing this. You need to make sure that you're really patient and you're completely engaged in this process and you're willing to kind of help these things along, and then just sort of hope that the weather will come and be good for the native plants.
Another thing that has come up with landowners has been maintenance. How do we maintain these practices? And a lot of times it's no different than how you'd maintain a grass waterway or a filter strip or anything like that. Obviously you don't want to disturb it too much during the nesting season of a lot of wildlife. But after that August date, generally it's dry enough to get down in here. This year we had a drought, so it was dry all summer long. So plenty of opportunity to get down in here and mow, mow this floodplain bench, mow the banks and the upper terrace, to where you can get some weed control and try to help some of this vegetation get up and get established. I've also talked with some other folks that have projects in other counties, and there is a chemical approach as far as using herbicides to kind of control those woody species that tend to crop up. Here we've struggled with willows. Other places have cottonwoods and silver maples and things like that really kind of crop up and threaten access from a county surveyor standpoint and getting in and doing maintenance. But a fairly standard herbicide control program can provide the control needed to maintain this herbaceous floodplain bench. So.
We're here at a 2-stage ditch site in Indiana, and I want to talk just a little bit about maintenance. So you might have noticed, as you're kind of sitting here watching this video looking at me, that there's sort of a problem in this bench stage of the 2-stage ditch. You might see it. It's fairly obvious here, but there's 2 big tire tracks running through the ditch. Most likely, what it looks like to me that happened is the landowner tried to be proactive and mow. They tried to go ahead and make sure that they were doing maintenance on the ditch, make sure they were taking care of it, helping those native plants grow. And unfortunately, they chose to mow in a time that it was just really too wet to do so. And this is what you don't want to see happen in your 2-stage ditch, because this is really just creating more sediment and more erosion. And those are the things that the bench is supposed to be trapping and stopping from happening. So you want to be cautious when you're kind of implementing maintenance in a 2-stage. You want to make sure that you're picking the season that's proper. So for example, a lot of our wildlife, a lot of our birds, their nesting season is April 1st through August 1st. So you want to make sure that you're not mowing during those time periods, because you don't want to disturb them. You don't want to disturb them during nesting season. It's typically wetter in the spring. I know this year was an exception in our drought here in Indiana, but typically it's wetter, and so it would be really challenging to get that first mow in prior to April 1st. Now, in the fall, it's usually much drier, and that would be you'd be more able to do that in late November, early December, those kind of things. I want to caution you too, as you move into the winter months, you don't need to mow this like you would a lawn. This isn't a once a week kind of proposition where you're coming down here and you're really maintaining it, you're really hitting it hard. That's not how these native plants thrive. They need a mowing to kind of keep that weed pressure down in years 1 through 3, but we're talking about once or twice a season. That's it. And I would really lean towards once in that late fall. Now again, as I was talking about, as you move into those winter months, you want to really make sure it's sort of a trade-off there. You don't want to impact winter habitat, winter cover for wildlife that may be utilizing this. Now as we move into this winter, you can see this ditch is pretty sparse. Everything's pretty low to the ground, not a lot of vegetation. that may look good, but as we get rains and snow and more water moving through the system over the winter months, we're really kind of doing it a disservice in its ability. That top growth is what captures that moisture. That's the first point of interception, that top growth. So you kind of want to keep it tall, and then if you can get in late winter, or like I said, again, late fall, we're talking around harvest time. October is the prime time to mow, because then you're most likely it's going to be mild enough temperature that you get some more top growth on here, and you can have that cover and have that trapping ability over the winter months. So what you don't want to see, you don't really want to be rutting up the ditch. That's not a good idea.